Bob Huggins did a very bad thing. So did a lot of Iowa State players. Two very different things, but both bad.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sometimes people do really stupid things. I am graduating tomorrow from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. That is Cameron Stewart. Welcome into Locked On Baylor and happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you accept my thank you for making this your first listen every single day. And I hope that you too are appalled at a word that cross-Canadian ragweed included in a song now 20 some odd years ago, and that Bob Huggins whipped out not once, but twice on a Cincinnati radio show. And we now know that his punishment is losing $1 million. He has publicly announced he will donate money to the LGBTQ plus organizations at Xavier and West Virginia. And his contract is now a 1-year deal. Cam, I'll be honest with you. When I listened to the audio clip, for those that are wondering, it was a homophobic slur. 3 letters, starts with an F. The worst
cigarette,
F-word,
Drake.
The worst F word. When I listened to the clip, I thought, oh no. Oh no, because he goes in for it and then he goes back for more.
Yeah, and the host of the radio show sets him up. Like, not that that's not an excuse, but sets him up with something that's also pretty bad. And I don't think we haven't heard any reprimand for that. It's not great, man. And when I first heard it, I was like, obviously not by the audio of it, but just by what he's saying. I'm like, is this a secret recording? Like, were they not on the air yet? No, it was all real, man.
Yeah.
It's all real. And it's recorded. And honestly, not that I said I would do this as the athletic director, but I'm a little surprised he didn't just get fired.
Right.
Pretty surprised in the year 2023 he didn't get fired.
Not been winning a lot of games, by the way, recently.
That's the other thing.
Which is it like, look,
it's like and if you're going with that could be like the Mark Adams thing at Tech, where it's just like it's a nice out, right?
Yeah.
Where you could see like the writing was kind of on the wall at Tech with Mark Adams. Like, oh, okay, here's something we can get rid of him.
If Kirby Smart does this, which wouldn't be like, oh, if there are coaches that if they did this, you'd go, oh, that's weird. I mean, if tomorrow Dave Aranda whipped that out, you're like, whoa,
that would be very weird. Yeah.
Whoa. But if Kirby Smart did it, you're like, oh, yeah, Kirby Smart. He's not getting fired. They're too good to fire him.
Yeah.
They've won too many games to fire him. Bob Huggins has not won a lot of games recently. So it's like, okay, this could be your out, kind of an unceremonious way to go for a guy who was a legend at your school. But instead, West Virginia said, you know what? Here's a $1 million slap on the wrist, a 3-game suspension, which seems like, okay, what's the point? You don't get to be there for the Radford game next year. Ooh.
Fairmont State.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. And he released a public apology. West Virginia is one of the few schools in America where I think you can do that and not lose your job. If you do that at Cal or Stanford or Baylor, you're never seeing the light of day.
Yeah, and it's funny because it reminds me of the Bobby Knight thing, the thing when he choked that kid. You remember that?
Yeah.
That thing.
Not quite the Mike Leach. Mike Leach is on the lower level of that.
Yeah, and so look, I don't want to get in a pissing contest here, but the thing Bob Knight did was worse, right? But it's kind of the same deal in that everyone was like, well, are you going to fire this guy? And they're like, no, we're not. But we're going to be like, hey, you're on our last nerves, buddy. Okay. You got to be on your best behavior now. All right. And it's basically the same thing. I think he got a small suspension. Fine. That was it. No tolerance policy after that because he was Bob Knight and it was Indiana. I know Bob Huggins is a Hall of Famer, but he's not quite on that level with the no national championships thing. But that's what it seems like. It's like, well, he's Bob Huggins. He's kind of our whole program right now.
Yeah.
Let's keep him aboard. This will blow over. Everyone will forget about this, which used to be the thing. I just don't think it is anymore. And to be honest, you got to say something like really, really terribly bad from my perspective, to lose your job from it. So I don't necessarily think he should lose his job. But I'm very surprised in the year 2023. Because, I mean, people lose their job for less than that, man. I mean, that's just the way life is now.
Do want to throw out there. So there are a couple layers to this, to me. Guy says something very offensive. Not cool, by the way. Like, I am of the I'm the people that they're like, you can't say nothing no more. Oh, those people get mad.
Yeah, you can't say that. You can't say that.
This is on the list of things that when you throw this one out there, not okay. We've established that you will be fired. Tom Brenneman got fired, which is funny that Brenneman actually spoke to Huggins' team about adversity a couple of years ago. They're buddies. So just
Cincinnati guys.
What a connection. And
something about that city.
To be very clear here, not okay. Cannot do this. He did say Catholic F words. So not only did he use the homophobic slur, he did it at an entire religion. Got me thinking. Got the wheels turning here. Had he said Baptist F words, I think we're still in this range of like, said a homophobic slur. The Baptists would probably be like, wow, Bob. They all like Bob Huggins. Had he gone after the Jewish community, the Muslim community,
there were an uneven playing field.
So, like, if he would like just picturing him saying, them at Xavier, they are Muslim homophobic slurs. I don't know if you are escaping that one. But the second that you call Catholic people the homophobic slur, hey, Bob, let's not do this again. Donate money to the LGBTQ plus organizations. I think it was Matt Mosley made a really good point. Do you think those LGBTQ plus organizations are like, Bob Huggins should apologize to us? And they're really excited for him to come speak to them on Monday at their public forum.
That's what I was thinking about in this whole apology and the assignment to him, the court order, basically. I'm like, the LGBTQ plus, they don't want Bob Huggins at their, what's he going to do? Show up to meetings and apologize to them individually? It's like, no, get out of here. Because from their standpoint, the LGBTQ plus community, they're like, well, this guy doesn't really care. Like, he blatantly, just brazenly said it on the radio. He knew he was on the radio. Whatever you think of that word, you're like, well, clearly he doesn't really care. And I don't want that non-sincerity coming in here and pretending to apologize. And we don't want to be a photo op for Bob Huggins.
Right.
And it's like, that's what I mean. Like, I get it. West Virginia has to do that where he's making donations and, going to these meetings and such. But you know, and I know, both sides of the aisle know he doesn't care. And it's just a photo op.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's a bad look.
It's Wreck-It Ralph. To use a movie that's probably a decade old now. It's older, where he comes in and sits down at it's like a faux AA meeting, whatever it was supposed to be for them. It was for like villains. And it's just, there are a bunch of people sitting in a circle, and then Wreck-It Ralph is just 17 times bigger than all of them. It's just Bob Huggins in the LGBTQ plus circle.
What if this goes like good catatonic? What if Bob Huggins like becomes a gay icon? Like, he comes out at the end of it. He's like, you know what? I learned a lot from this experience. Wouldn't that be great, man? Like, he's a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race or something. That'd be awesome.
Just so calmly too. His demeanor is just,
He's just big into it.
I just figured something out about myself. Did a lot of reflecting.
Like 3 months time, Elton John's got like an Instagram. He's like an Instagram post. He's like, this man Bob Huggins. Honestly, he's learned a lot, and I think you should listen to him as well. That would be awesome. What if that was the result? That would be so great.
Right. It is. What was it? Convert. It's the reverse.
Just like he's like lobbying to Congress and the House for like gay rights. That would be awesome, man.
What January, February, March, April, May, Bob Huggins, July, August.
Oh man, Bob Huggins' rainbow profile picture incoming in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
West Virginia basketball for sure.
Would they fire him then?
It's tough to do during Pride Month. Tough to do.
Well, that is,
and I'll bet he keeps it up till July 3rd.
Yeah, not the 4th though. He's back.
Yeah.
Not maybe worse, maybe not. I don't know. You can decide. But a bunch of kids did some sports betting that was super illegal. A coach did it too at Alabama, but they're not in the Big 12. Iowa State is. You know what else is also big? Built bars. They are only 130 calories. And in this like massive bar, in this big dark, like there's dark chocolate all over them, 100% real dark chocolate as well. They're healthy. They taste amazing. That's right. Real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. Cookies and cream. Not sure how they do it, but they taste amazing. They're super healthy. 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar. And now you don't have to wait to get a box. Go to Sam's Club, Walmart, and you get a 4-bar box at Walmart, a 13-bar box at Sam's Club, built.com. Walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a Built bar at Walmart or Sam's Club. Or go to built.com. Get it at built.com. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Just get a Built bar. Trust me, they're damn good.
They even make me show ID to get inside of Sam's Club.
Iowa State has notified the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletics Association, of sports betting allegations involving football players as gambling cases rise. We've now seen out of Iowa and Iowa State, at least 15 people in the Cyclones program have been sports betting. As an avid sports bettor myself, by the way, and someone who uses FanDuel, a proud sponsor, often, it's tough, man. If you're these kids, you want to make a quick buck. You just, I am Iowa State basketball player, and we're playing against Northwestern State. I know we're going to win by 25. What's so wrong about me putting $100 on Iowa State to win?
So do you think that that's what it is? Because I don't know too many of the details of this.
Here's what I think it is.
Because with the details we've heard, it could be almost anything, which is where this becomes a crapshoot. But yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
Was it Calvin Ridley who put like $200 on his team to win while he was hurt?
Yeah. Yes, it was Calvin Ridley.
Hill of Beans. It's not that amount of money is not going to matter. They suspended him 16 games for it. Made a huge example out of him. Did Pete Rose do something like this?
Well, yeah, Pete Rose was the manager of the Reds and was betting on baseball, and it was unclear whether he bet on Reds games or not. The guy who has maybe the most control other than the starting pitcher or the umpire of who will win or lose that game was betting potentially on his own team's games. And I think that's what it did come out as, because he was like, I was betting on my team to win. Like, oh, okay, Pete. Sorry. So that's why it's a crapshoot, though, because there's so little like paper trail to a lot of this, to a lot of sports betting. And so unless we know definitively that they're not betting on games that Iowa State is involved in, then there's not much you can do in terms of a punishment, like in terms of an investigation. You know what I mean? Like, it could be anything from, they could have just been doing money for a bracket challenge or fantasy football.
Yeah.
Or they could have been shaving points in a basketball game or a football game. Like that's the two ends of the spectrum. And it's so hard to figure out which end they're at, whether they're somewhere in between. It becomes a he said, she said, because there's so little paper trail. All you know is that there's money put down for wagering on sports. And it's just not something you can do, man. I know it's much bigger and less taboo than it has been in the past for us non-athletic regular people, but when you're a college athlete, you can't do it. The laws haven't quite caught up, I guess, what you can say, but you can't do that.
Well, you could never make
what's going on in the Midwest. What's going on in the Hawkeye State?
A stipulation that says you can only sports bet if you wager on your team. That can't be a thing. So I don't know how you would ever allow it in the game. But let me be clear. Were they betting on themselves? The football team probably was not.
Well, could that be? That's obviously going to happen more often when you're betting against yourself. But even if you're betting on yourself, could that be an issue of like an insider trading type thing? I don't know, you hear a couple hours before the game that this guy on the other team's not going to play and no one else in the world knows that, you have extra knowledge that the average bettor does not.
Yes. Or in the same way, like, hey, Ricky, we got to like end of the clock, ticking down, end of the game. Go, you got to dunk this. Like, dude, I've got us. I've got us by 8.
Is this One Tree Hill?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
They make Lucas miss the free throws?
Scott, Rick Scott, right? Rick Fox.
Rick Fox. Yes, former
Fox.
Celtic.
Yeah.
Former Laker.
Yep. Who played the championship, started in a championship for the Lakers, and then was on One Tree Hill as a that's like a
4-episode character of a friggin' loan shark.
That's funny.
High school kid shave points.
Did you watch that before or after the Cal Washington State game? The CW. I went to the Iowa State TCU game, and I put a lump sum on FanDuel on TCU to win that game, and it makes me think now maybe the Iowa State players did too. They very well could have. But you're right. This could be, hey, they were betting against their own team every game, or it could be a bracket pool. It said they come from multiple different sports. I just don't do we tell you that as an athlete, like you're on the track and field team, you cannot wager on any sport at all, period, ever in the next 4 years?
Well, yes, that is what they're telling them.
That feels funky, though. Like, I want them to be able to put a prop on the Super Bowl, Gatorade to be orange. Who cares?
Look, I would like that too. I just don't know how you monitor it. That's all. I mean, it's a Wild West.
So what do we do to these kids?
Burn them at the stake, I think, right? Is that what the NCAA is going to do? I mean,
there's no way they suit up again for Iowa State.
No, I think that's very doubtful. I think even Iowa State would ask them to leave.
But did they say the cross-Canadian ragweed word? Because at that point,
that would keep them in.
Some amnesty. They're good.
Quarter of the season, they're gone. But other than that, I think they probably won't play for Iowa State again, and there's going to be suspensions here. I mean, were you old enough to remember the Ohio State football thing?
Yes,
when they were trading their rings for tattoos and
Jim Tressel.
I mean, those guys were not allowed to play ever again.
They revoked their Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, and that to me is more ridiculous because this case you don't know if they're betting on their own games, but you know what I mean. So the NCAA is going to come down hard, and this could well be an example because they know this is something. Obviously, it's been in place forever, but something that's going to become more and more likely in the coming years because of how big betting has gotten and how mainstream it is, how less taboo it is than it was even 10, 12 years ago. So I think they probably make an example out of these kids and hopefully that's the worst of it. But I would love to just see it monitored because I think they should be able to do. I mean, there's people that work in athletic departments that can't do March Madness pools.
Yep.
I've seen it. It's stupid. But until you can figure out what they're betting on, it's not convincing enough for you.
Final topic of today's show. Somebody that you probably love. Somebody that you've definitely read his books, or you're at least familiar with him.
Yes.
Has done some bad things.
Yes. Was this why we were late? Were you looking this up? Were you researching this?
Oh, I was doing a lot of researching. And this whole
yeah.
Who knew that this existed? I want to give you the chance. You're the one that brought this up. I want to give you the chance to segue us into this third and final segment.
Jeez. I don't know how to segue. This is why you're the host. This is why.
By the way, he is two.
Right?
He is 2 of these away from having the same number as the amount of mighty orphans there were.
That's a good one. He's almost there. He's a dime to a dozen.
So there's a guy. If you have ever read was it the Boxcar Kids? Was that him? He's the 12 Mighty Orphans. Jim Dent wrote the 12 Mighty
Junction
Orphans.
Boys.
And the Junction Boys. So you probably read Jim Dent.
Books.
Apparently Cowboys Insider. One of the funnier things that I found over this, 365 Sports, if you know, is a show that covers sports across college and professional athletics. Not here to dog on them or say anything bad about them, but I thought this was interesting. They had this guy on their show in 2022, so he's out of prison now.
Good,
I think, or he could have called in.
Well, actually, good. I don't know, but yeah.
And the title of the show,
he's made some calls. He's made. I'll let you finish this, but he has made some calls when he wasn't supposed to. I'll leave it at that. I will tell that story after you tell this.
So the title of the show, I think, is hilarious because you already said that he was in prison. This is Armstrong Sims made this title, by the way, and I love Armstrong.
Shout out to Armstrong, man.
Title of their interview they did, it's 365 Sports with Jim Dent. Concern for the Cowboys and life as a man in prison. Tough week for the Cowboys and how I got incarcerated.
Jim Dent is out of his outside time for the day. And how about those outside receivers for the Cowboys? Am I right?
All in one interview. CeeDee Lamb and Prison Basketball League. I just couldn't believe, like struggles for the Cowboys and I went to prison. One of the better YouTube titles that I've seen.
It's great, man. It's great.
Lead, don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead. Absolutely. They led with their strongest point. He wrote a lot of books, and then he got into some trouble. Cam, can you expound on the trouble that Jim Dent has gotten into post Boxcar Children and was it Junction Boys? Junction Boys and 12 Mighty Orphans.
Look. Uber just came a few years too late. Let's call it that. My man went to prison on DUI number 10. Number 10.
The ninth one, they were like, all right, joke's over.
Seriously, not this time.
Joke is over. One more, and you're going to the pen.
First off, it's crazy
not
that we get to that number. In Massachusetts, you might have to double that to get to the pen. But that's a dangerous thing. It
shouldn't be funny. The man has obviously struggled with a lot of stuff, but at the same time, when you told me 10 DWIs,
and it wasn't just that, Drake, because he was on parole and jumped ship to Mexico.
He did not stay in the United States.
That's before he went to jail. So he had just written a book. Oh my God, this dude. He needs a book about himself. He needs a memoir, man.
I would read it. I'd read the hell out of it.
He's a hell of a writer, too, man. If you haven't read 12 Mighty Orphans, it is an unbelievable book. It's so good.
Glenn Moore's favorite book.
Who's?
Glenn Moore, the Big 12 softball coach of the year.
Great book. Probably the second best sports book I've ever read. And so he had just written a book on Johnny Manziel. And part of it, which had made news, was that Jerry Jones was ready to select Manziel, and his son had to talk him out of it in the war room in the draft. And so that made headlines. It's all over the place, and he's not going to miss his opportunity to do the media tour. Only one problem, Drake. He has jumped bail and he's in Mexico. So he got some untraceable cell phones and was calling radio producers and doing these hits from Mexico as a fugitive. That's freaking awesome, man. That's fantastic. The grind does not stop. It does not stop for jumping bail. It does not stop for Mexico, and it does not stop for untraceable cell phones. It's great, man. And what a writer, too. I mean, that memoir is going to kick ass, man. It's so what a life.
Do we know where he is now?
And so what's funny is I actually had read a couple weeks ago, speaking of 12 Mighty Orphans, that the story went like he was watching NFL Network, and they were talking about some hard hitters from the 50s, and that's when Hardy Brown comes up, who, if you haven't read the book, is basically the main character in the book. And he was talking about how he's from Fort Worth and how he learned these things in the home. Okay. And so Jim Dent's enamored. He's like, what? He must mean an orphanage, like a children's home, which he was. He grew up at the Masonic home in Fort Worth, which had this great high school football history in the 30s. And that's how they got 12 Mighty Orphans. Anyway, so Jim Dent learns about this, looks it up and goes, oh my God, I have to make something out of this. And says he was so excited that he drove to the site on a Sunday night that night and slept in his car until they got in the next morning, and he asked them about, the football stuff and doing a book and all this. And I was like, that seems peculiar. I don't know. Writers can be quirky, but now it seems to make a little more sense.
Yeah.
He was sleeping in his car in front of an abandoned or a shutdown Masonic home in Fort Worth.
Quirky is a
It's
word.
probably better than him driving home. So.
Yeah. The his last arrest was in 2015.
If he writes another book, though, call me a hypocrite, man. I'm going out and I'm buying it. He's a great writer.
I just couldn't. I mean, it blew my mind. 10 times he has been pulled over for driving while intoxicated. After the 6th one, what are we doing? Like,
how do you have a license, man? I mean, maybe he didn't. I don't know.
3 is crazy.
To get through 3 and not kill anybody, that's pretty good, man.
10 times, never once an accident.
Not that we know of. So I guess there's some props there, but he also got caught 10 times. So how close was he to an accident, like, to be caught? Look, there, but for the grace of God go I. Unfortunately, most of us have done that, usually only once or twice. And most of us don't get caught. I mean, it makes you wonder how many times he's done it. 10 times caught. That's brutal, man.
And what Cam was saying is most of us are not driven drunk, but after one beer at the bar.
Yes, of course. I've
People have done that before. Drive high, get a DUI. See, I haven't, nor would I.
Still distracted, but
you should never do it.
Personally,
Jim Dent did. Jim Dent did it once, and it was not the repercussions. He was like, "Oh, that's it." Huh.
It is sad. I mean, to some extent, the guy must have a problem, but also
right,
first off, there's not want for money to go get some help, and also
there have to be some
as
things.
A society, as a law and order, let that happen 10 times.
Have to be some things in life that you're like, that sucks, but also it's a little funny. There's a little.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And it's the oddity of this one. Popular. I don't want to call him a children's author, but.
And I mean, look,
could be a kid and read
we
these books.
know sports journalists and the people that would write sports books and take the time and serious dedication. I mean, first off, 12 Mighty Orphans. This is something that happened 70 years before he wrote it. Like, the amount of research and detail he had in it is insane. The amount of work he must put in is insane. So we know those kinds of people. That's not something you'd think they'd get busted for. They're usually nerds.
Not 10 times.
They don't go out on Saturday nights because they're watching college football. You know what I mean? It's like me. I mean, just not something you'd expect. And they're goody two-shoes. After one, they're like, damn, I'm not doing that again, which most people should probably do. That's kind of the lesson.
Great point. 10 times.
He was living like those 90s Cowboys, bro. Living fast. He never got out of it.
Also played for SMU, or went to SMU in the 70s. So could be the root. Today's show is a show of people who have done very bad things that you should not do. The first is say a homophobic slur. The
second, drunk that one time.
The second is going to sports bet if you're an athlete. The third is 10 DWIs.
Now you rank those however you want in terms of how bad each one of them is. Okay.
Just today's show, let it be a lesson as I graduate college tomorrow.
It's crazy that we talked about like driving drunk, vehicle impairments, and legendary college basketball coaches, and nowhere did we mention how Jim Boeheim killed a guy.
He did, and he got away with it too.
Well, now we have.
And he got away with it too. That was a frequent up-tempo conversation was Jim Boeheim. There were some bad jokes made on up-tempo about Jim Boeheim killing a guy. Got away with murder.
Wonder why it's not there anymore.
Muck duck. That's Cameron Stewart. I'm Drake Toll. Thanks for taking a life lesson with us today. For getting some life lessons.
See how my poll went, by the way, about the jerseys.
Yeah, go check out his
poll. Still have time if you listen to this in the morning. Bold golds are not going to win. They're probably my favorite, honestly. Love this one that I'm wearing here. And the 2012 blackout uniforms, which are getting smacked at the time of recording. That's too bad. I think they may be the best.
Thanks for being Locked On Baylor, your first listen every single day. Come back tomorrow. I'm going to talk about graduation stuff. See ya. This has been Always Will Be Locked On Baylor.